The night when Amara's fragile legs first trembled with life, and she rose from her wheelchair, the world seemed to stop and hold its breath. That miracle echoed through the city like a thunderclap of hope. Chief Okafor's mansion, once known only as a palace of sorrow, had turned into a beacon of joy. But wherever light shines too brightly, shadows always gather with envy. Whispers began to spread beyond the golden gates. Some praised the wonder, calling Chima a chosen boy sent by heaven to heal the broken. Others, however, spat venom in hushed voices. "How can a homeless beggar suddenly become the son of a billionaire?" they muttered. "This is nothing but manipulation. That street rat has tricked his way into fortune." And like fire catching dry grass, rumors began to spread. Amara, though still young, could already sense the weight of the world's judgment. But whenever those doubts clouded her heart, she only had to look at Chima, his thin frame, his eyes still filled with kindness despite all the scars life had carved into him. And she knew the truth. He was not after riches. He was the miracle her heart had been waiting for. Every dawn, she would sit in the garden, her bare feet pressing the cool grass, and whisper, "Dance for me, Chima." And he would. His body swayed with a rhythm beyond music, and with every step, Amara's laughter grew louder. Yet beyond the mansion walls, forces were gathering that would not rest until that laughter was silenced. Chief Okafor's longtime rival, Chief Adika, was the first to raise his voice openly. A powerful businessman with eyes as cold as stone, he arrived one afternoon dressed in silk robes and dripping gold chains. Sitting across from Okafor in the grand hall, he sneered, "So this is what has become of you, my friend? A man of your wealth and power, reduced to adopting a street beggar? Tomorrow, will you hand him your companies too? Or perhaps your inheritance meant for your daughter?" His words were sharp knives aimed at Okafor's pride. For a moment, anger flared in Okafor's chest. But before he could answer, Amara, hidden behind the door, felt tears burn her eyes. She realized the world would never accept her brother as easily as she had. Still, she made a silent vow. No matter how fierce the storm became, she would stand by Chima's side. A few weeks later, that storm arrived in flesh and blood. Chima had gone into the marketplace, eager to buy Amara a small wooden toy he had seen, something he thought might make her laugh. But as he left the stall, a group of rough men blocked his path. Their faces were cruel, their voices dripping with malice. "So this is the little prince of Okafor's house?" One mocked, a rat dressed in gold. They shoved him, spat on him, and whispered threats. "You will never belong there. One day they'll throw you back to the streets where you came from." Chima tried to slip past them, but fists rained down, and he stumbled, bruised and bleeding. Somehow, with all the strength of survival that the streets had carved into him, he managed to escape and run. Breathless, he reached the gates of the mansion. When Amara saw his torn clothes and the blood on his cheek, her heart broke. She wanted to scream at the cruelty of the world, but Chima, weak and trembling, simply smiled. "Do not cry," he whispered. "I have known hunger sharper than knives and nights colder than death. These bruises cannot take away my dance, nor the joy I bring you." Amara threw her arms around him, and in that embrace, a bond was forged stronger than blood. When Chief Okafor learned of the attack, his fury erupted like a volcano. He summoned his guards, demanding extra protection around his mansion, vowing that no harm would come to Chima again. But deep inside, doubt gnawed at him. Could one decision, his choice to bring this boy into his home, destroy everything he had built? Was Adika right? Still, each time he heard Amara laugh, he knew the answer. The true test came during a grand banquet. Guests from across the nation, politicians, tycoons, celebrities, gathered in the lavishly decorated hall. Musicians played, torches lit up the night sky, and laughter filled the air. Chief Okafor stood proudly, ready to introduce his daughter and the boy who had changed their lives. When Amara took the stage, she held Chima's hand tightly. Her voice, clear and full of courage, rang out, "This is my brother. He saved me not with medicine, not with wealth, but with love and joy. He is my family." A stunned silence swept the hall. Some clapped hesitantly, touched by her words. But others whispered in disgust. "A homeless boy, family? Impossible." Adika stood at the edge of the crowd, his eyes burning with hatred, his lips curling into a sinister smile. He leaned toward his men and murmured, "We will expose him for the fraud he is, and when we do, Okafor himself will cast him out." That night, as the music played and the feast continued, a dark plan began to weave itself in the shadows, a plan that would test the strength of Chima's spirit, the depth of Amara's love, and the very foundation of Chief Okafor's family. The morning after the banquet, the mansion was buzzing with unease. Servants whispered in the corridors, guards scanned every shadow twice, and Amara could feel the invisible weight pressing down on her home. Chima, unaware of the sinister whispers, was in the garden practicing a new dance. He spun and leapt with joy, his bare feet thudding against the earth, while Amara clapped in rhythm. Yet behind the curtains of the great hall, Chief Okafor stood silently, his brow furrowed. The words of his rival, Adika, had pierced deeper than he wished to admit. What if they are right? He thought. What if this boy is nothing but a clever trickster, using my daughter's heart as his ladder into wealth? The thought sickened him, yet it refused to leave. Meanwhile, Adika's men were already at work. They bribed one of the junior servants in the mansion, a greedy young man named Dapo, who felt overlooked and underpaid. They promised him gold if he would help plant evidence that Chima was stealing from the household. Dapo hesitated at first. After all, he had seen with his own eyes how Amara's laughter had returned. But greed drowned his conscience. One night, while everyone slept, he crept into Chief Okafor's study. From the safe, he stole a handful of gold coins and hid them beneath the mattress in the small room that Chima slept in. Then he slipped out, his heart pounding with both fear and excitement. The very next morning, as the sun poured through the mansion windows, Chief Okafor called his guards in fury. His safe had been tampered with. Nothing could have prepared Chima for what happened next. As he carried a tray of breakfast to the garden where Amara waited, the guards stormed in, yanked the tray from his hands, and seized him by the arms. "What is this?" Chima cried, fear flashing in his eyes. They dragged him into his room and flung the mattress aside. And there, glittering in the light, lay the stolen gold coins. Gasps echoed through the mansion. Dapo stood at the back, pretending to be shocked, though secretly smirking. Chief Okafor's face turned ashen. For a long moment he could not breathe. His heart thundered in his chest. Was Adika right all along? Amara rushed forward, grabbing Chima's hand. "No!" she screamed, tears spilling down her face. "He would never do this. He saved me, father. He brought me back to life. He is not a thief." But the evidence was damning. Even the guards, loyal as they were, could not deny what their eyes saw. Chima fell to his knees, his voice trembling but steady. "Sir, I swear on the memory of my dead parents, I did not steal. I would never betray the kindness you have given me. I have nothing but my dance, and it is with that dance that I serve this house." His words cut through the heavy silence, but Chief Okafor could not look him in the eye. His heart was a battlefield of doubt and love. "Enough," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Take him to the courtyard. I must think." The mansion, once alive with music and laughter, fell into a dreadful stillness. Amara locked herself in her room, sobbing until her pillow was soaked. She knew this was no coincidence. This was Adika's doing. But how could she prove it? Chima, meanwhile, sat in the courtyard under guard, his thin hands bound with rope. Yet even in chains, he hummed softly to himself, tapping his foot in rhythm. The guards looked at him strangely, whispering among themselves. "Is he mad? Even when accused he dances?" But one guard muttered, "Or maybe it is his strength." Days passed, and the city began to buzz with scandal. Newspapers printed bold headlines: "Homeless boy exposed as thief." Crowds gathered outside the mansion gates, some jeering, some pitying. Adika, dressed in all his wealth, appeared on public stages declaring, "Did I not say this boy was a fraud? Okafor has been blinded by sentiment. A rat in rags cannot become a prince." His words poisoned the ears of many, and Chief Okafor felt the sting of humiliation. His business partners began to distance themselves. Contracts slipped away. The empire he had built was trembling, not from the boy himself, but from the weight of society's judgment. In her despair, Amara decided she could not remain silent. Late one night, when the moon lit the garden silver, she crept into the servants' quarters. There she confronted Dapo, her eyes blazing with fury. "Tell me the truth," she demanded. "Did you frame my brother?" Dapo, cornered and trembling, tried to deny it, but Amara's gaze pierced through him. At last, unable to bear the weight of her tears, he confessed. "It was Adika's men," he whispered. "They promised me gold. I never thought it would go this far." Amara wasted no time. At dawn, she burst into her father's study, dragging Dapo behind her. Her voice was fierce, her body shaking. "Father, this man will tell you the truth." And before Chief Okafor's stunned eyes, Dapo fell to his knees and revealed everything. The plot, the bribe, the planted coins. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then Chief Okafor rose to his feet, his body trembling with rage. He turned to Chima, who was brought in under guard, and his voice broke with shame. "My son, forgive me. I doubted you and I should have trusted you. I let the poison of my enemies enter my heart." Tears streamed down his cheeks as he cut the ropes from Chima's wrists with his own hands. Amara threw herself into her brother's arms, and Chima held her tightly, his own tears falling. The mansion echoed again with emotion. Not laughter this time, but the fierce cry of truth breaking free from lies. Chief Okafor ordered Dapo to be cast out, and he swore vengeance on Adika. If he thinks he can break this family, he will learn that no wealth, no power, no lies can destroy what is built on love. Yet even as the family embraced, even as hope seemed to return, Adika was already plotting his next move. For he had not expected Amara's courage, nor Chima's unbreakable spirit. And in his darkened chamber, surrounded by shadows, he vowed, "If I cannot bring him down with lies, then I will strike where it hurts most." Let us see how strong they remain when faced with true danger. The storm was far from over. It was only just beginning. The days following Dapo's confession were tense, but filled with relief. The mansion breathed easier, and for a while it seemed peace had returned. Amara laughed freely again, and Chima's dances grew even brighter, as if each step were a defiance of the cruelty that had tried to break them. But beyond the gates, Chief Adika seethed with humiliation. His first plan had failed, and his enemies had grown stronger. Rage twisted in his chest like a coiled snake. "If they think a child's courage can defeat me," he whispered to his men, "they know nothing of the darkness I command." One evening, while Chief Okafor attended a late meeting with his business partners, Adika's shadow fell across the city. His men, cloaked in black, moved silently through the streets. Their target was not Chief Okafor, but something far more precious, Amara. As the moonlight draped the mansion, Amara sat in the garden waiting for Chima to finish practicing. She clapped as he spun with joy, dust rising beneath his bare feet. But before she could cheer, the silence shattered. Figures leapt from the hedges, masked and armed. Amara's screams split the night. Chima lunged forward, his frail body burning with courage, but strong hands seized him and hurled him to the ground. He fought wildly, his fists flying, his voice raw with desperation. "Leave her. Take me instead." But the men struck him hard, and darkness swallowed his senses. When Chima awoke, his body ached. He was chained in a dim warehouse, the smell of damp wood and rusted metal suffocating him. Beside him, Amara sat, her wrists bound, her face pale, but her eyes fierce. "Chima," she whispered, and though her voice shook, it carried strength. "Don't be afraid. We'll survive this." Chima, though trembling, nodded. "I will protect you, I promise." At dawn, Chief Okafor returned to his mansion only to find chaos. His guards were on their knees, ashamed, and his daughter and son were gone. A letter lay on the marble floor, sealed with Adika's mark. With trembling hands, he tore it open. "Okafor," it read, "your empire has mocked me long enough. You took in a street rat and dared to raise him above his station. Now you will pay. If you want to see your daughter alive, you will sign over half your companies to me. Refuse, and you will bury her body instead. You have 3 days." Chief Okafor's knees buckled. His cry shook the mansion walls. For a moment, the strongest man in the city seemed broken, but then his fists clenched, his eyes blazing. "No," he vowed. "He will not win. I will not let my children die." Meanwhile, in the warehouse, Amara and Chima endured their captivity. The guards mocked them, throwing scraps of bread and laughing. "Dance now, street rat," they jeered. Let's see if your miracles save you here. Chima's body burned with anger, but Amara touched his hand gently. Don't waste your strength on their cruelty. Save it for the moment we need it. Her calm gave him courage, and once more, even in chains, Chima began to move. His feet tapped, his body swayed, and though the guards laughed at first, unease soon crept into their eyes. It was as if the boy's rhythm defied the darkness itself, as if his spirit could not be chained. On the second night, Amara whispered her plan. The guards grow lazy when you dance. Tomorrow, keep dancing longer. When they are distracted, I'll use this. She revealed a sharp piece of metal she had hidden from the floor. Chima nodded, his heart pounding. They waited. The next day, as the sun sank, Chima rose and began his dance. Weak, barefoot, bruised, yet his movements were fierce, alive, unstoppable. He leapt and spun, his chains clinking in rhythm. The guards leaned back, laughing, clapping mockingly, their eyes fixed on him. In that moment, Amara's fingers worked furiously at her ropes with the shard of metal. Sweat poured down her face, but she did not stop. At last the rope snapped free. Quietly, she slipped her hands loose and reached for Chima's chains. But before she could finish, the door burst open. Chief Adika himself entered, his shadow filling the room. His laughter was like poison. Beautiful, he said mockingly. The cripple dances again through another fool. How touching. But tonight the show ends. He raised his hand and his men dragged Chima forward. Amara screamed, struggling, but Adika held her back. Do you know why I hate you, boy? He snarled. Because you remind this city that miracles belong to the poor, not the rich, and that is a story I cannot allow. He drew a dagger, its blade gleaming in the lantern light. Chima's heart pounded, but he lifted his chin. You can kill me, he said, voice steady, but you cannot kill the joy I gave her. You cannot kill the truth. His words struck Adika like fire, but rage consumed him. He raised the blade, and in that instant, the warehouse doors exploded open. Chief Okafor stormed in with his guards, fury burning in his eyes. Touch my children, he roared, and you will not live to see another dawn. Steel clashed, shouts echoed, and chaos consumed the room. Amara, freed by her own courage, rushed to Chima's side, cutting the last of his chains. Together, they ran into their father's arms as the battle raged. Adika tried to flee, but Okafor himself pursued him, their feud erupting in a clash of fists and fury. Finally, with a cry that shook the night, Okafor struck him down, and Adika was dragged away in chains. In the aftermath, the family embraced in tears. I nearly lost you, Okafor whispered, his voice trembling. But never again. You are my children, both of you, and no power in this world will tear us apart. The mansion once more filled with light, but everyone knew the scars of that night would linger. Yet those scars also told a story, that even in the darkest chains, love and courage could dance free. The night of their rescue became a legend whispered across the city. Within days, newspapers splashed bold headlines across their pages. Billionaire's daughter saved by homeless boy, and Chima, the dance that defied death. Television channels ran endless footage of the mansion, while reporters swarmed outside the gates, desperate for a glimpse of the children who had turned sorrow into miracle. What had once been a private family tale now belonged to the entire nation. Everywhere Chima and Amara went, crowds gathered. Children rushed to imitate Chima's steps, spinning and stomping barefoot on the dirt roads, their laughter echoing through the neighborhoods. Mothers wiped tears from their eyes as they pointed and said, Look, that boy is proof that no matter how poor you are, your gift can still change the world. Even hardened men bowed their heads respectfully when Chima passed, whispering blessings under their breath. For the first time in his life, Chima felt warmth not only from a family but from a nation. Yet fame is a double-edged sword. For every cheer there was a sneer. For every hand of gratitude, a whisper of doubt. Some muttered that Chima's rise was nothing but luck, a freak twist of fate. Others scoffed that a beggar had no place among the wealthy, no matter how inspiring his story. Chief Okafor, though proud, grew uneasy. He knew the world could lift a boy to the skies one day and cast him into the dust the next. Invitations began to pour in. Schools wanted Chima to perform for children. Charities asked him to be their ambassador. Foreign journalists traveled from across the sea, eager to record his story. One evening, an elegant letter arrived embossed with gold. It was from the royal palace itself. The king had heard of the miracle and requested that Amara and Chima appear at a grand festival to dance before dignitaries from around the world. The mansion buzzed with excitement. Amara could hardly contain her joy, for she had dreamed of seeing her brother's gift recognized. Chima, however, felt a knot in his stomach. He had never stood before royalty, never danced before thousands of eyes. "What if I stumble?" he whispered to Amara. She squeezed his hand. "Then stumble with joy. You gave me back my laughter not because you were perfect, but because you danced with your heart. Do the same for them." On the night of the festival, the palace shone like a jewel. Lanterns blazed, drums thundered, and the air carried the scent of roasted meats and sweet wines. Delegations from distant lands sat in jeweled chairs, their eyes fixed on the stage. When the king entered, the hall rose in silence, awaiting the miracle they had heard so much about. Then, stepping onto the polished floor, came Chima, barefoot as always, his eyes wide but his chin held high. Beside him wheeled Amara, who now walked with the aid of a golden cane, her head lifted with pride. The music began, soft and trembling, and Chima moved. His arms swept the air, his body twisted like a flame. His feet struck the earth in rhythm that seemed to rise from the very soil of the land. Amara clapped in time, her laughter ringing like bells. The audience gasped, then rose to their feet, their cheers shaking the palace walls. For the first time, Chima's dance did not belong only to him or to Amara. It belonged to the world, but not everyone cheered. In the shadows of the great hall, Chief Attica's allies watched with narrowed eyes. Though Adika himself languished in chains awaiting trial, his loyal men still roamed free, bitter and vengeful. To them, this spectacle was unbearable. "That rat has bewitched the kingdom," one spat. "If he continues to rise, our power will crumble." And so, even as the king praised Chima and offered gifts of gold, new plots were already being woven. When the festival ended, Chief Okafor found himself facing new pressures. Politicians courted him, businessmen offered partnerships, and foreign investors dangled fortunes before him, all in exchange for Chima's face and story. "Let him represent us," they urged. "He is the symbol of hope. With him the people will follow." But Okafor hesitated, for though he wanted the world to see the beauty of Chima's gift, he feared the weight of fame might crush the boy who once danced only to chase away hunger. Amara noticed it too. Chima was quieter at night now. He still danced, but sometimes his movements seemed heavy, burdened by expectation. One evening, as they sat beneath the stars, she touched his shoulder gently. "Brother, what troubles you?" Chima sighed. "When I danced for you, it was only joy. But now the world demands something from me. They want me to be their miracle, their savior. What if I cannot?" Amara's eyes softened. "Then remember this. You were never meant to be a miracle for the world. You were simply meant to be yourself, and that was enough to heal me. Let that be enough still." Her words wrapped around him like a shield. But deep inside, Chima wondered if the path ahead would allow such simplicity. For fame was no longer knocking at the door. It had broken it down. And with it came envy sharper than any blade. In the alleys of the city, whispers grew darker. "Bring the boy down." In the mansions of rivals, glasses clinked over secret deals. If Chima falls, Okafor falls too. The storm was gathering once again. And this time, it was larger than anything the family had faced before. The days after the royal festival were filled with both glory and tension. The king's blessing had made Chima a household name, and the nation looked to him as a symbol of resilience and hope. But as his fame spread, so too did the envy of powerful men who despised the idea of a barefoot boy rising higher than them. Attica's allies, wealthy merchants, crooked politicians, and rival tycoons, formed a secret alliance. They vowed to crush Okafor's household and erase Chima's name forever. Their plan was ruthless. First, they targeted Okafor's businesses. Contracts were stolen, shipments sabotaged, and trusted partners bribed to betray him. Factories stood silent, workers unpaid. The empire that had taken decades to build shook under the weight of conspiracy. Newspapers that once hailed Chima as a miracle now printed headlines poisoned with lies. Street rat drains billionaire's fortune. Okafor's house doomed by adopted boy. Chief Okafor bore the blows silently. But at night he wept in his chamber, his pride shattered. "Perhaps I have cursed this family," he whispered. "Perhaps bringing him in has doomed us all." Yet when he looked upon Amara's smiling face, walking stronger each day, and Chima's unbreakable spirit, he knew surrender was not an option. Then came the final streak, one stormy evening. As thunder rolled over the city, fire erupted in one of Okafor's largest warehouses. Flames clawed at the night sky, devouring goods worth millions. Guards shouted, workers panicked, and amid the chaos, a shadowy figure appeared with a cruel smile. It was one of Adika's chief allies, come to deliver the killing blow. His men seized Chima and dragged him toward the blaze. "Dance now, boy," they mocked. "Dance as the fire takes you," Amara screamed, rushing forward, but strong arms held her back. The inferno roared, sparks raining down like stars of death. Chima struggled, but the men forced him closer to the flames. For the first time, true terror gripped his heart, not for himself, but for Amara, who watched helplessly. In that moment, memories flashed, the nights of hunger under bridges. The first time Amara smiled at his dance, the day Chief Okafor called him son. He realized his life had already been a miracle, and if this was to be his end, he would face it with the same gift that had carried him from despair to love. With a cry that pierced the storm, Chima began to dance. Even bound, even bloodied, he stamped his feet, twisted his body, and moved with a rhythm that defied the fire itself. The guards faltered, unnerved. Amara, tears streaming, clapped her hands in desperate rhythm, her voice breaking but strong. "Dance, Chima, dance!" The air shifted, the storm howled, and the fire seemed to bend as if listening. Then, through the smoke, Chief Okafor charged with his men. His eyes blazed with fury. "Release my son!" he thundered. A battle erupted, blades clashed, fists flew, and amid the chaos, Chima's chains were broken. He collapsed into Amara's arms, weak but unbroken. Together they stumbled from the flames as the warehouse roof caved in, burying Adika's ally in his own treachery. The city awoke the next morning to the sight of Chima and Amara standing hand in hand before the charred ruins. Though the empire of wealth had been scarred, the empire of love stood stronger than ever. Chief Okafor addressed the crowd that gathered. "For years, I believed riches were the shield of life. But my wealth could not heal my daughter. My power could not stop sorrow. It was this boy, who owned nothing but his courage and his dance, who gave us back everything we lost. Let the world know, family is not built by blood or gold, but by love and sacrifice." The people erupted in cheers. Chima, once a nameless child of the streets, now stood as a symbol of unbreakable hope. Invitations poured from across the world, not for his riches, but for his story, his gift, his light. Yet Chima remained humble. Each morning, he still rose at dawn, barefoot in the garden, and danced first and foremost for Amara, whose laughter was still his greatest reward. And so the tale closed, not with riches regained or enemies defeated, but with a truth that burned brighter than fire. That one act of kindness, one dance of courage, could transform despair into joy, darkness into light, and strangers into family.